Today on the Diz List, we count down the top 5 things from Hollywood studios in 2024.
Welcome to the Diz List, the podcast that lists everything in Walt Disney World. I'm Nick.
And I'm Rob, and today we are going to count down the top 5 things from Hollywood studios that we experienced in 2024.
You were playing our holiday theme today.
I did. I redid it again.
That's okay. It sounded good. I like it.
Thanks.
You know, a little jingle bells.
Well, and I once in a while I like to throw in a surprise and see if you notice.
It's hard not to notice that one. Theme songs and stuff like that, where I hear it every week, it's hard not to notice. Speaking of holidays, we got a holiday card from one of our patrons this week.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, that's great.
It showed up and it said Diz List Podcast showed up in my mailbox. I was like, huh? And then I remember
your wife goes, "What's the Diz List Podcast?"
No, she was like, "Why are we getting mail here?" And I was like, "Oh, I had to put an address when I sent out the pins, and stuff. So that's probably what happened." So,
yeah, that's fine.
So many thanks. I'm not going to show the card here, but it's great. I opened it, I looked, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we got a Christmas card!"
That's
so,
cool.
Lindsay, Merry Christmas! Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great. We appreciate it.
That was so amazing.
Love that stuff.
And that's not us begging for more Christmas cards, but I'm just saying that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
To open up that and see that. It always makes us remember why we do this too. Is like it's kind of a bigger community, and we really enjoy doing it.
Yeah. Nick showed it to me, and I just went, "This is just so cool."
It's surreal, right?
I know. Great.
So today, when we start talking about the Hollywood Studios stuff, I got to tell you, Hollywood Studios might make it, especially with the stuff happening with Animal Kingdom, may possibly, especially with like the Monsters Inc. and stuff like that, we could see a park that for the first time that was been my worst, no longer be my worst.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of changes coming. We had Animal Kingdom we did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Lots of changes. A lot of changes. This one also is going to have a lot of changes coming up. So, we'll see. We'll see in a couple of years what we think.
Yeah, we'll see if they shift places, because if you're a regular listener, this park is it's the 4th favorite for us.
Yeah.
Again, you don't dislike it. There's a lot that we do like, but in our ranking, and that's literally what we do every week, in our rankings, this one is at the bottom for us. In the middle, you and I are top, actually. You and I are flip-flopped.
Yes, I agree. Yep.
Both of ours is, we have Animal Kingdom at 3.
Yep.
And my one is Magic Kingdom, your one is Epcot, and then we flip-flop for 2 also.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm really excited about what's coming. And
me too.
And because of that, I could see myself really ending up flipping this with Animal Kingdom if they don't do Animal Kingdom right.
Yeah. Or another big one too, and I thought about this today when I was watching some videos with the cranes over by Thunder Mountain. Time is a big factor too. If it takes forever, that's not always everyone's favorite part of Epcot the last couple of years. You call it Walcott,
Yeah, well, I mean,
but that took a long time.
Yeah, a long time, and some people don't even like what we got after the end. I personally think it's great.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that don't. Epcot, that construction took a while, and then you've got the fact that they're already delayed on permits. Who knows what's going to happen over? They haven't. No, those permits were for for Magic Kingdom. I haven't heard any issues with the Animal Kingdom ones, and I haven't heard anything with the ones over at Hollywood Studios. So that's good.
Yeah, and our Patreon episode last week. If you're not a patron, if you are, go back and listen to that one, because our conversation started kind of one way, and then you and I sort of turned over enough stones that we came up with a really interesting theory about what is going on over in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I kind of
check out that episode.
Yeah, I kind of think it's one of those ones that like started with people might have been like, "Man, you guys are being so negative." Then we're like, "But you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance for something huge.
Something
actually.
huge." And if you look at the maps, I think it could happen. All right, so why don't we get right down to it? Hollywood Studios. There's a lot in this particular park that we experienced in this year that we've always experienced,
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't a lot of new things this year. I'm wondering what you're going to say for your list here. I can pretty much guarantee you I know you're number one, but that's okay.
I don't know. So these lists for our listeners and our YouTube viewers here, these lists are based on our experiences in 2024.
Correct.
So my experience in 2024 was a little different than other people's because we were there during one of Florida's hurricanes.
Yeah.
So the first half of the day was crazy, and that kind of let up a little bit, and then it got really bad again. But I also realized that hurricanes can be very dangerous, and people have gotten seriously injured, and I don't want to bring light to any of that. I realize that hurricanes are serious business, and when we were there, it was mild enough that we could attend the park. Look, I put my trust in Disney, and they are in Orlando, and they are in the middle of hurricanes. And my number 5 really is hurricane survival. And again, I use that term knowing that I realize how dangerous hurricanes can really be. So I think I'm using it in the terms of, hey, we went to a theme park when the weather was crazy, but Disney knows what's safe and what's not safe.
Yeah.
If the park is open, obviously there's insurance, there's liability, there's all those things that go along with having a theme park open. So I'm going to trust Disney and know that we're going to run the rides. Disney says, hey, we're going to do everything business as usual. The weather was nuts. At times the water was, almost a foot deep in certain places.
The pictures
because of the drainage.
Crazy. Yeah.
The trees were like sideways. If you go back in I don't know if any of those stories saved or not from my trip there from August, but it was pretty wild. So my number 5, honestly, it's essentially a shout out to Disney for doing the best they could during that weather. So it's kind of a weird one. I don't know if we've ever had a number 5 that goes out to Disney management and the people running the parks and Disney safety. So number 5 is Disney survival. Shout out to everyone for keeping us safe during that time and keeping and cast members for keeping all the rides up and running. So sort of my number 5 is a shout out to everybody.
Yeah, I think they call them the ride out team, like the hurricane ride out. Either way, it's amazing that you got to experience that. It's sad what happened to so many people during this particular hurricane season.
Yeah.
Whether it be people in North Carolina, those in the Tampa area, because they got hit twice in a row.
Yes.
Certainly Central Florida got hit, but not like those coastal cities. But that's an experience that you've never had before, so it makes complete sense.
And that day, what we ended up doing was we went to the park early for rope drop, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And we were there till about lunchtime, and the weather was still really crazy, so we went back to our hotel and then came back later at night. The weather was still pretty crazy, but by, I don't know, kind of after dinner time, it got really nice. And we got some nice photos, and so, it ended
Honestly,
up being okay by the end of the day.
The sky at the end of the night was some of the prettiest pictures I've ever seen.
It was amazing.
Because it's like you don't have that typical humidity, because it had literally every bit of humidity had been in that storm. It was gone.
And we got a great photo right out in front where the main gates are, where it says Hollywood Studios there.
Yeah.
The sky's like pink and orange.
It's
it was
gorgeous.
It was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing shot. So what do you have for your 5?
So my number 5 is something that, we make fun of at least half of what I'm about to say all the time. And that is Rock and Roller Coaster, and I'm lumping together Tower of Terror.
Yeah, I think that's fine considering they're neighbors and their similarities.
And I don't usually get to ride them because my kids don't usually want to.
Mm-hmm.
My sister-in-law, one of her favorite rides is Tower of Terror, and we wanted to do Tower of Terror. We wanted to do Rock and Roller Coaster, and so we go into the back. We rope dropped them, and my daughter was just like not feeling it, and you could tell she was super nervous. When she gets nervous, she gets quiet, and if you know my daughter, quiet and my daughter don't really go usually in the same sentence. She was super quiet. I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. She got on that ride, And it was, at first, I couldn't tell if the screams I was hearing was, get me the heck off of this, or it was, this is the most amazing thing ever. The ride finishes, and I turned to her, and this is on Rock and Roller Coaster, and she's like, that was the best ride ever.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? She's like, I love it. I love this ride.
Wow.
And I looked at my brother. I was like, we got to ride this train because trust me, like that could have went one of two ways, and it went the way that's good for everybody. Yeah. So let's walk over. So now she's feeling on a high. And originally she was not going on Tower of Terror. And my son was like, cool, we will all hang out. And dad and, his brother and his sister-in-law will go on this ride. Like I could tell him, he was like, yeah. Auntie and uncle they're going to go up on that ride with dad. And so my daughter was feeling it. She was like excited. So she starts walking with us. We're walking.
So you're going to ride that wave.
We're walking to the ride. And it's not until we actually turn the corner to go into the actual lobby of the hotel that my son realizes, wait, I'm in line for this? I did not sign up for this. We're like, everybody's riding it. I didn't want to ride it. I was like, well, you're here now. So we rode it, and we have one of the funniest, because that particular ride, it's not just the picture for your photo pass.
Oh, you get the video.
So my brother had his water, but we all have our like hydro flasks or like Yetis, whatever. Our water bottles are all in our bags, and we have like my bag has a spot on the side. It goes in, you pull a little thing tight and it holds it in. Mm-hmm. So does my brother's. And the weightlessness caused the bottle to start to come out. So in the ride video, you see my brother going all excited, and then you see the oh crap moment as he looks down to the side, and his bottle is like mid-air, and he like grabs it. You see his eyes pop and go. So that's what you get in the slow motion ride photo or ride video. So for me, number 5 was Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror because of the memory that I made this summer, and the fact that it was my daughter's first time going upside down too, because it's the only ride that she would have ever gone upside down on, because she doesn't do that's the only roller coaster that does go upside down, right? Yeah.
In
Disney World,
Incredicoaster does.
No, in Disney World.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Yeah. So she does. She's never been upside down, and she was like loving it, and so the memories there that were made really makes this solidly jump up, even though we make fun of the ride. And I'm super glad it's going to be Rock and Roller Coaster featuring the Muppets or whatever the heck they're going to call it. But so what's your number 4?
My number 4 was a ride that I really don't like, and I had a good experience on it again. And I had this conversation when we talked about Epcot, and I didn't love Mission Space. It was just not terrible.
Right.
We had a lot of fun doing Smuggler's Run. So a lot of times we don't. Like my best memory of doing Smuggler's Run was with you, where we had 6 people and we did it together, and that was great because it was our 6 people. And a lot of times when we ride it, we're a family of 4, and they tack on 2 extra people. And no offense to the people, you want to be with your family, and they put us in as a group of 4, and it was a lot of fun. We were goofing off and having a great time. The pressure is gone of you have to kind of be semi-normal when there's 2 other people in your group you don't really know. All that awkwardness was gone, and I think everyone did pretty good. And we got my 2 kids to kind of drive the thing. They did pretty good. My son's really good at video games. My daughter's not bad either. So we had them do that, and we had a great time. So a ride where normally I don't care too much about it, it ended up being better. Not great, but enough that it made my list as something that was important for our trip for this year. How was your experience on it this year?
Well, that's funny you should ask, because
did the fire alarm go off?
This is the one that literally when I brought this episode up to my wife today, we were at brunch, and I said, what about Hollywood Studios? What do you guys think? And my wife was like, I think you got to put up there that we actually got evacuated.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not putting that on my top. We didn't get to ride it. And the reason we didn't get to ride it was we got almost to the load room, and a fire alarm went off. And it was like a legit, like, we're evacuating. And then, like, the cast members were like, no, people, this is not a joke. Like, you need to leave the building.
Yeah.
And people are just standing there like, oh, you're going to leave? Cool. I'll just move up in line. It's like, no.
Well, I mean,
this is a fire. It's literally because they were the fire alarms going off, and then they would come over the loudspeaker, albeit it's hard to understand.
Yeah.
But like they'd come over the loudspeaker and say, there is a fire. You need to exit the building.
I mean, imagine if this is your first time going to Hollywood Studios and you're experiencing this ride and honestly, this had to have happened to at least one person contemplating, is this real or is this part of what happens on this ride?
I think the alarm part could have been confused. But once you hear someone in English, plain English, saying, this is an emergency situation, you need to leave the building. Please evacuate the building. Cast members, please clear the queue.
Wow.
Once you hear that, you probably should clear it.
Yeah.
As a result, we actually did not get to go on it. It was down for 4 or 5 hours. I'm assuming.
Jeez, that's a huge amount of time.
Yeah, I'm assuming what happened was there was some sort of it could be anything, an actuator or any kind of it could be a hydraulic leak, whatever the case may be, that was caused smoke at some point or whatever, and they needed to take care of it. It wasn't a fire. There was no, they were clearing it like it was a fire, because it was a real fire alarm. And they had, at least behind, front of house, you didn't see any kind of like emergency response. So I don't think it was anything major. It did come back up later, but we were on our way out of the park, and I was like, you know what? It's not. I explained to my brother because he had never been on it. I was like, it's kind of like a video game.
No,
like
it is.
I said it's like Star Tours, but where you press buttons.
And the best part is you get to be inside the Millennium Falcon and kind of that game area and the cockpit. To me, that's the coolest part about it.
My number 4 is actually going to shock you, though.
Mm-hmm.
My number 4 is not going to shock you that it's on my list. It's going to shock you that it's this low on my list.
Uh-oh.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I still love this place. But number 4 for me is Baseline Tap House.
That's your favorite.
It is my favorite. It's my favorite lounge in a park.
So all this means is, I'm going to cut you off here.
Yep.
This just means that you had great experiences elsewhere.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's why, like, I think that for me, so I had a very good experience here too, but it was not anything different than I've always had. It's always good there.
Do a short overview for our new listeners.
So Baseline is a lounge in a park. It's one of the few in-park lounges. So it's like, kind of like your Dawa bar or your the lounge outside of Tiffin's.
Yeah.
Nomad Lounge is what it's called. But it's not attached to any restaurant, okay? So like Dawa bar I kind of feel is attached to Tusker House in a way. Mm-hmm. You've got Nomad Lounge is attached to Tiffin's. This lounge is kind of a standalone. You can get really good soft pretzels there, the jumbo soft pretzels. You can get a charcuterie board, which is pretty good.
You usually do that, right?
I usually get the charcuterie board and a pretzel, and we split it amongst us. They used to, and I don't know why they went away, they used to have like these puff pastry beef, like open face sandwich things.
Great.
Those were really good. But they have decent food bites, like small bites, and then they have for people who are not looking to drink alcohol, they do have a hibiscus raspberry soda water that you can get free refills of.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like free refills at Disney is crazy. And it's not like out of a machine. It's like they mix it. It's amazing. And they have a lot of really good craft beer. It's always cool there. Like, I don't know why, but like in the hottest park, that's the one spot where there's like always a breeze. Mm-hmm. There's some indoor seating. I usually actually don't mind sitting outside there as long as I have an umbrella.
Yeah, when we were there, we split off because my kids just wanted pizza, so we ended up going to Pizza Rizzo.
Yep.
Fun fact: if you go upstairs, it's generally quieter. It's less busy, and it's actually really cool up there too. Mm-hmm. So it was a way for us to cool off. But we came out and met up with you, and you guys were feeling great. You were just chilling, and even though you were outside in the hot sun in Orlando summer, you had your umbrella up, and all 4 of you were smiling, and we're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's not like it typically you would think it would be, as far as sitting outside. Because that park can get real hot real quick.
Yeah. That pavement just like...
Oh, yeah.
holds in the heat
and it sucks the life out of you.
Oh, geez, yeah.
So, but yeah, that's my number 4 is baseline this year. And I'm telling you right now, it's not because it got worse. It's because everything else just had that much of a better feel. But we're going to head off to the halftime show.
Yep.
And the halftime show, of course, is brought to you by our patrons, all of our patrons, especially Lindsay this week for sending us that wonderful Christmas card. So if you don't know what Patreon gets, patreon.com/DizlessPod, head over there. You can join for free and send me your Instagram handle, and I will add you to our close friends list. So when we post little things, sometimes we'll take a quick little picture of us recording or some little short or something, or when we're on vacation, and we'll post that just so our close friends. So that's something everybody gets. For a really nominal cost per month, you can get early access to new episodes as well as bonus episodes every week that we do. So we do a whole second episode every week. This week we're actually going to do a fun one. We're gonna count down our top Christmas movies, our top holiday movies from Disney.
I don't think we'll overlap too much on this.
Okay, that'll be fun.
No, I got some wacky ones.
Oh, the Star Wars Christmas movie.
No, I didn't, no. It's a hard one to watch.
Yeah, it's real hard to watch.
It's funny, but if I'm doing ones I like and are best,
yeah,
there's none that are really jokes.
Yeah, okay. I got you.
So
we're going to head off to the halftime show, and we'll see you right after this. Welcome back. In the second half of the show, we're going to talk about our top 3. So now we're getting into the big boys. What do you got for number 3?
Well, number 3, some popular YouTube stations say at rope drop, don't go straight to Rise of the Resistance. Some people do, some people don't, because it could be down. So it's a gamble.
Yeah, I've done it, and it's been down.
So it's a gamble. So we had kind of all the chips were stacked against us. Is that the right terminology? Chips stacked against us?
Yeah, of course.
So we're waiting in line. It's pouring rain. It's not raining sideways yet. So we're waiting for it to open. They start letting us in open or early. So we get in, and I just said, let's try. It's hurricane conditions. It's rope drop. If we were basically like, if it doesn't work, we just go over and we do something else.
Well, and the other thing is, if it doesn't work, at least that queue that early in the morning, you'll be waiting indoors.
Correct.
Whereas if you're going to Rock and Roller Coaster or Tower of Terror, they're holding you outside.
That's a little bit more of a gamble.
Correct.
So we got there, and our gamble worked out.
Nice.
It worked out great, and the best part about it is we had all of the pre-show sequences. Because that was another gamble. Because more than once you've had. I mean, when we did it, we got together. We got to see all of them, but that doesn't always happen for everybody.
Especially
early in the morning. They want to get people through. It was just kind of a not a horrible day. It's never a horrible day at Disney. It's horrible weather.
Right.
But we ended up getting lucky, hitting that up first. I know it's a gamble. Let's try it. Okay. Next time we go, we don't really feel like we have to do that. Next time we can try something different. We got that out of the way. The ride was great. Everything worked properly. Kylo Ren worked properly within the ride. I think there's only one thing that I know of that doesn't really work properly anymore. And I think they call them the phasers. I think they're the guns that are on, is it the AT-AT walker?
It's
the phaser guns are on something but they haven't. It's a similar thing to Everest where it's been in B mode for a long time.
Correct.
Okay, but I think everything else was right. We had the right pre-show. Everything else was working properly. It was great. So again, it's 3 for me on my list because we had a great experience. It worked. I mean, we could flip a coin. You teach a class. I mean,
yeah.
The class that Nick teaches that I'm actually really interested in is statistics, and I'll put you on the spot here. What do you think are the chances that situation that we had where all the things fell in a row worked out? What would your percentage be for me?
I mean, I would assume that they're probably not independent events, but pretending they're independent events and based on my past experience
and weather, and
I would say that having all that happen at rope drop is probably under 25%.
Okay,
but
That was definitely a gamble.
That's what we call subjective probability. It's based on a hunch.
Okay.
That's not really based on theoretical things. But I would say probably, I mean, realistically, early in the morning, it rarely is up, and when it is up, for it to have everything running properly and the pre-show is actually running.
Yeah. And the crazy weather, all those things, all those factors.
Yeah.
So I won't talk about the ride a ton. I'm assuming if you're listening, you've at least watched a video or experienced it yourself. So I think people know what a fantastic ride it is. So that is my number 3, is our experience rope dropping Rise of the Resistance.
My number 3 is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Absolutely love this ride. It's definitely one of those ones that you can't miss if you have a kiddo that loves Mickey. But if you're somebody who likes the Paul Ruddish animation, then you definitely need to do this ride. The pre-show is great. The way that the sound is, like, I know I've talked about this and it's just me geeking out. That final room, the fact that like you enter and you know that people are on the other side hearing one thing really loudly on their side, but you're not hearing that. You're hearing the stuff you're supposed to hear.
It's very impressive how Disney does their.
Yeah.
It is sound mixing, but I know there's a specific term for that.
There's an
spatial.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's spatial mixing. I'm trying to remember the specific term that they use.
Crazy.
They do a great job with it. And they've been doing a great job since the 70s too.
Yeah, it's not new.
And 80s.
That's not new. Yeah.
No, Disney's always done that very well.
Yeah. I mean, you could even point to some of this in the Madame Leota room in Haunted Mansion, honestly, some of it. But that ride is just so much fun. The dancing scene where you go in and you're looking in the mirror and everybody in your cart is dancing together. And it's like you're doing the conga. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I do. I don't know why. I put my hands up and I go along with what Daisy's doing.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So it's just a fun, family fun ride. And so for me, Minnie and Mickey's is always going to be near the top. It was honestly a decent wait. I can't recall if we had, I know we had Lightning Lane that day or Genie Plus that day. I can't remember if I used it on that ride because I want to say we did that ride coming back out of after we did Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, and so by coming out of the ride back then, like the people who did that early in the morning were done with it, the younger families, and then moving on to other stuff. And everybody else was still doing, so it's kind of a ride that
I didn't think of it that
has
way.
a longer line really early in the morning, then dies down and comes back up. So yeah, that's my number 3.
So I love that ride too. It was not on my list, but it wasn't, not because I don't like that ride, but our experience was kind of same as always. It was good. It wasn't worse. It wasn't better. It didn't crack the top 5 for experiences for me. Love the ride though. I'm with
Makes
you on
sense.
that one.
Yep.
Number 2 for me is one that would never really make my list, but something great happened on this ride too, and it's Star Tours.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So
I remember. I know exactly what you're gonna say.
So Star Tours, 2 great things happened for us.
Yeah.
We always, every time we go on that ride, we want to be the spy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, when you ride Star Tours, there's probably, how many people are on it? 30 at a time? Maybe 30 in that room?
Yeah, probably. I think there's 4 rows of 8.
Okay.
It's 32.
So there's 32 people in that little car doing your Star Tour. And every time they randomly choose one person that ends up being the spy that they put the camera on. And it's never any of us. We always want it to be.
It's never.
And it never is. And we ride it over and over and over. And this one time.
So much so I would have thought that like it's actually a plant. Because it's never anybody I'm ever with. Go ahead.
So we start in our group, we're always talking about as we sit down, is it going to be us this time? Come on, I hope it is. And my kids turn to me and they go, how great would it be if it was mommy? And I'm like, oh, that would be hilarious if, they zoom in on my wife. And so the ride starts and it's 3PO and we go past Darth Vader. And then we see the spy, and it's my wife.
That's so
it was so great. And we, all four of us, arms up, go, yeah! We were so excited. We were so pumped. And then it gets even better because they added in the new scenes in Star Tours.
Yeah, I hate
we,
you.
And we got the Mandalorian one.
Yeah.
It was because I think they added them after you went. Is that right?
No, so I went right after they stopped. So they were only doing them. And then I went and they had just stopped doing only them and they went back to the randomizing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we went to Hoth and either way, we did not get the Mandalorian.
Well, we did ride it twice, and that second time we get the same one we always do, and that's the Gungan, the underwater Star Wars world with Jar Jar and all of those.
Your favorite.
Well, I don't like that movie at all. And we always get that one somehow. And we did. And it was fine because there was no wait. Right. I don't remember if we did it first or second. It doesn't matter. But the one time it was like the perfect. It was, it was my wife. And then it was the Mandalorian movie. It was a lot of fun. The other one I do really like, since we're talking about it now, is from the most recent Star Wars film. That one's not Last Jedi. It's how am I blanking on
Rise
the title?
of Skywalker?
Yes. And that one, it's the one where they have the crashed starship and that you go near the water. That is fantastic.
Yep.
That's another one of my favorites too. Mm-hmm. But we had a great time on Star Tours, and Star Tours is always one of those rides that we do, but it doesn't always crack my top 5. Could it crack the top 5 again for me? Sure, because the addition of those new videos is so good. And we've said this before too, there's so many rides that could do that. Soarin' being one of them. Think of all the different rides. Listeners, think of it in your head right now. All the things where you could just easily, if it's involved with screens, you could throw in a remix and it really helps the re-rideability.
I mean, they
really does.
They did Soarin'. They fixed the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Well, sort of fixed it. And they fixed the end scene so it represents the current Epcot.
Now, speaking of Epcot, we use the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. It's re-rideability because you want to be able to collect all 6 of those songs. Mm-hmm. I do. I haven't heard all 6. I've heard 4. There's still 2 that I need to hear, and I'm going to keep riding it until I get all 6 of them.
Yeah. Speaking of rides, by the way, that re-rideability, we need to correct something we did last week, and it just randomly popped in my head. We said, hey, you ever think there could be a holiday overlay over at Guardians? And then it was out for like 30 minutes, and one of our patrons, Travis, sends me a message. They tried that, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. The first year they played the music.
Yeah.
They played they did the music overlay, so it wasn't any kind of new different videos, and it did not go well. So maybe that's because they do need to get the cast back together. So my number, you're good with your number 2?
Yeah,
okay,
go for it.
So my number 2 is something that I always stop. We always stop at this place, okay? And this year I just feel like, wow, it was so good. And that is Woody's Lunchbox. Woody's Lunchbox is an underrated quick service. And it's not really, it's like a mix between a quick service and like a kiosk because there's seating, but it's like very minimal. It's outside. It's not, that's one of the things I always complain about.
Did they just redo the seating there?
I don't think so. Maybe they did.
I think they just did. Keep going.
I didn't know they did.
Just thought of that.
So you get these seasonal, I think they call them lunchbox tarts.
They're like a Pop-Tart.
They're homemade Pop-Tarts.
Sure.
They're so good. They're so good.
Maple?
And you name it. So they have like the seasonal ones. I think when we were there, they were still doing like their summer berry one. But like if you're there in the fall, and of course Disney fall means August 1st or later.
Sure.
You get like a pumpkin spice one, or like they have a marshmallowy one for the winter sometimes. It's always a good one. So we got a couple of those, 2 different ones of those. I got brisket loaded tachos.
Right. That's the tater tots place.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't call them tachos. I think they're loaded potato barrels.
Yeah.
Whatever. But like the food there is not bad and the prices are good. It's one of those ones that's weird though. You probably don't want to do mobile order. So I've done it before where I show up, mobile order is the window. It takes forever to get your stuff, but there's people coming up ordering
and they're getting their food right away.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
some places are like that.
It's just like, mobile order is backed up, but not.
Yeah.
So I don't always mobile order there, but I always will eat there. It's surprisingly good. It really actually is. So Woody's Lunchbox is my number 2, which brings us to our number 1s here.
My number 1 is definitely something that you are not interested in at all.
I'm not interested in it.
Sure. So
Okay.
do you want to try to guess it? It was something big that I did this year that I really enjoyed, and you're like, nope, I have no interest in doing that whatsoever. It's a big building that's connected to the Baseline Tap House.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It is the Sci-Fi Diner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so Nick didn't have any interest in this, and that's not a bad. It's not a knock on Nick. We all like what we like, and it's all good. So we've been wanting to do this for a couple years, and we had a reservation for it during COVID, and that ended up getting canceled. And we ended up going to the Sci-Fi Dine-In, and if you don't know what this is, it's a giant, it's almost like a soundstage, pretty much, huge building. It's actually connected to ABC Commissary because I think they share bathrooms. And then the other side is Baseline Tap House. So It's all kind of in one big area there.
Yeah.
And once you go in, you're in this like huge, I don't know how to even describe it. It's almost like the ceilings are super high up.
It looks like you're at a drive-in.
It makes it look like you're in a drive-in, and every table is modeled after a different type of classic car. I would say closest thing would be like a 57 Chevy or something like that. And they have one out front. So the way to know if you're in the right area, there's a really big sign, but you'll miss it because it's really high up on the side of the building. But if you're walking around Hollywood Studios and you're over kind of by that Star Tours area, you're going to see kind of like an old classic car.
Yep.
And that's kind of your indication. Oh, this is where it is. When you go inside, it's kind of like what Nick said. It's like a drive-in movie. The food was great. We all got burgers. The burgers were fantastic. You have to make a reservation. So we made a reservation in advance. So the quality of food you're getting is a little bit above average. It's not gourmet style food by any means, but the burger was it's hard to, through different trips to be able to gauge what was the best burger, but it was definitely one of the best burgers we had.
Cool.
Everything was fresh. We got drinks. I don't even remember what drinks we even had. And on the screen, they play like little clips and trailers of older sci-fi black and white movies, and then in between they have like the dancing characters, the Coke and the Pepsi and the candy go. Let's all go to the lobby. That whole thing.
Yep.
And it was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. My wife and I were sitting in the front seat, and my daughter and son were in the seat behind us, and then they actually sat. And this didn't bother us, shockingly. No one really cared. I thought I would. But then further back, like the car had 3 rows, and there was another couple. I don't know if they were on a date or what they were. They were in the 3rd row, but we were all just kind of relaxing and enjoying the air conditioning and watching these movies. Because if you think about it this way, when you're on vacation for this long and you're with the same group of people, it's not that we're annoyed. We get along just fine. But once in a while, it's cool to just sit and chill and watch something fun, and the environment is great, and we really, really enjoyed it. And for me, that was my number 1 because it was something we've wanted to do for such a long time.
That makes sense.
We finally got to do it, and it really met our expectations. It didn't exceed it. It wasn't the greatest thing that we've ever done, but for this trip, it was very special because it was new, and it was something we were really anticipating for a long time.
I can completely understand. My big issue is exactly what you talked about, is that you can't really talk to the people you're eating with.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's just not, that's why it doesn't really, appeal to me. I do think that the fact that you really wanted to do it and finally got to do it was a huge, huge thing.
Because it was canceled last time.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. So for me, my number 1 is actually something that I've always enjoyed, but maybe didn't know it was going to be, I don't know, this year it just was different, okay? And that is Galaxy's Edge on a whole. I always go into Galaxy's Edge and I'm like, the idea of it is great, but it's so hot and it's so crowded and just get me out of here.
Well, and then we've also been very critical of the fact that they made this world that we're not familiar with.
Right.
That was kind of made us grumpy. Me, definitely. You can speak for yourself, but I've always had the thought of going to, like they do over in Harry Potter over in Universal, where you can go and visit a place from the movie.
Yeah, I do think that they screwed up I think they know they did, and I think they're trying to make some amends by bringing in characters and recognizing that Star Wars fans aren't going to be like, well, I shouldn't be able to see him here and him here. Like, no.
Well, there's a small percentage, but
Yeah, whatever.
Most of us are like, sure, give me the Mandalorian over here,
Right.
who's an entirely different timeline than
Right.
Darth Maul over here.
Yeah,
And if you don't know who the characters are, they're from various timelines.
Yeah, and that's fine in my opinion.
But I
mean,
don't care.
at the same time, I do wish they would have, for instance, why is the Millennium Falcon there? I have no clue because there's not really any backstory about Batuu. But anyway, so Galaxy's Edge for me this year was just different. I had a really good time in there. My brother and sister-in-law had not been in there, so for them to go in and see it was really cool. Rise of the Resistance was working. Pre-shows worked. Everything was good. So
Good.
that was wonderful.
So we both had a good experience there.
We even, honestly, it is kind of funny to get evacuated and be like, oh yeah, this building's on fire right now or something. Something's going on. Like whatever. And walking around in that part, I even like the cast members there too. It's just they buy into it. So we went and got our pictures taken by a PhotoPass photographer. And
At the Millennium Falcon area?
yeah, and he says something to me about, oh, I really like your textiles. Because I was wearing one of the shirts that I had designed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I made this. He said, really? I'm also a textile designer. And starts talking to me about how, of course, but talking about it and it was just such a cool interaction. And he's like, no, I really like that design. I cannot remember for the life of me which one I was wearing that day. But
your pirate one?
I think it was my pirate one. But I don't know why I would have worn it there. Oh, it was.
I think it might have been your Woody. I would guess it's your Woody one.
Could have been
the
Buzz.
Woody and Buzz for president.
Yeah, Buzz and Woody 2024. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So, and my son was wearing the Hoth Tauntaun shirt that day, and he just was talking to me about those kinds of things. It was just a fun. In general, the interactions we had there were really fun this year. The rides all worked except for, obviously we couldn't end up getting on to Smuggler's Run because of the issue there. I just think it was great. It was better than I remember it. The characters walking around were great. So all in all, I'm quite excited by how well they actually pulled that off, and what we ended up with this summer was a different level in my opinion, and that's why it's my number one. So as far as any kind of honorable mentions, I don't really have a lot because I've talked about pretty much all the things I even like at that park, because that park can be quite a bear for me, in my opinion.
Well, I mentioned Mickey and Minnie's.
Yeah, you
because
did.
That was on your list.
Yeah, you had mentioned Mickey and Minnie's. I know that's on yours. I know what I could say that is always good for me there, which is the pin trading. I feel like they have the best pin trading of any of the parks.
Oh, geez, we haven't mentioned pin trading very much at all.
No, but pin trading there is pretty good because they've got a couple different locations. So I do think that pin trading there is a fun one. So.
It definitely is, and we had a great time with pin trading on our whole trip, and that hasn't come up at all, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Yeah. Because we had really good luck on this trip. We brought a bag of the ones that he was willing to trade. The ones that he doesn't want to trade stay home on his pin board. And we just had a bag, and we traded at every park, and we had a great time.
Cool. Yeah. I gotta tell you, Hollywood Studios is closing ground on Animal Kingdom for me.
Well, with the new additions too. I mean, people are mad about potentially losing that whole Muppet area, but boy, I'm happy that we retain it.
What?
I know.
Losing what? You're losing one show.
Yeah.
Because
Pizza Rizzo's closed half the time anyway.
Yeah. You're losing a bad restaurant, and you're losing one show that's so outdated. And I understand it's the last thing Jim Henson had his hands in.
Yeah.
But guess what? It's okay. Progress is okay in this situation. That park, by redoing that area, will add capacity. This isn't like Animal Kingdom where they're replacing stuff and it's a like for like switch.
See, that's tough. You're absolutely right too, is what most of the parks need, and this is what we're getting over in Magic Kingdom, which they absolutely need, is more things for more people. You also mentioned that they're adding more hotels. Well, if you're adding more hotels,
You better have. Yeah.
you better have more things for people to do and more
Exactly.
opportunities for the additional people who are coming in and who are staying there.
Yeah. Unless you
Or
want to stay.
guess where they're going?
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to go across town.
Right. Unless you want them to stay at your hotel and then drive across to Universal, which we know for a fact Disney loves to keep people in the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's partially a big part of why they offered free transportation to and from the airport was that, people don't rent cars when they have free transportation, which means they're stuck in the bubble. I mean, that's really a big part of why they did it.
Yeah.
But you don't have anything else, I'm assuming? We're
No.
good to go?
No,
Cool.
I just agree with your sentiment that this park is improving.
It is definitely improving. I would like to make it down there sometime to do one of the Jollywood nights over there because I think they've finally kind of figured that out a little bit. Last year was a little rough. I think it's getting better.
Yep, and they made changes quickly and fixed a lot of those things. And this year it seems to be better.
Yeah, I agree. Everything I've seen looks good. So thanks, guys, so much for listening. It's been a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Tomorrow is just a list away.
Tune in next time, and we'll see you real soon.